This looks better.
Where's our DOT guy?
We don't know.
Hi, Brian. Can I help you get anything settled?
Yeah, are people muted?
Yes.
Can we unmute them so that they can?
Chat is disabled for attendees.
I'm gonna stick with Serena.
So yeah,
Shirley,
let
she
me
wants to be here.
hold on one second. So let me, I'm going to be the host for a minute and see if I can help you get settled.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Sure.
you.
And there's also something about an ASL interpreter can't turn on their camera.
Okay, I'll help with that as well.
Thank you.
Okay, Octavia, you're the interpreter, and so I'm just promoting you to panelist. I think you have to agree to that. Okay, great. And I'm gonna. Okay, now you should be able to get your camera. Great. Is there any other interpreter here as well?
Yes, their name is Jen, G-E-N, and they have ASL interpreter in their name as well. Thank you. And we'll be taking turns.
Could you say the name again? I don't see ASL interpreter. Is it? It's Jennifer Nicholas
No, Genevieve, G.
or with a G?
Yeah.
Jen Essie.
Okay, let me ask. Does it say ASL interpreter G-E-N? Yes, it's E-S, yes, S-C is right.
Okay, doesn't say interpreter. Okay, I got it now though. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, the interpreters should be fine now. They can show their cameras. And the other thing, you want to enable chat, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, it looks like we are having trouble enabling chat for the participants right now, but they can post questions in the Q&A. So you can look there to get their feedback.
Okay.
And before you go, can you please put Janae Cobbs as a panelist because she's deaf and we need to see her to sign or
Yes.
to interpret her questions. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And can you make Brian a co-host?
And can people be able to be unmuted? Can they unmute themselves?
They can raise their hands and then you can unmute them. So people can raise their hands and then do that.
Okay.
Okay, so I think you should be all set. I'm going to make you the host again, Brian, and then you can go ahead and get started.
Okay. Okay, everyone. Sorry about all of that. Let me share screen. Okay. You can see my screen, I hope. This is Safe Service Provider session, actually. I'm not sure why it was named what it was in the schedule, but it's really for safe providers. And this is the that bit.ly sign in for this PD that you're attending. So if you need to do that, please do. And let's get going here. Obviously, I'm here and Redora's here. We have our norms, our regular SFUSD norms, keeping equality at the center for students and adults, being engaged and present and being part of the solution. Our braver norms of keep liberation for the oppressed at the center and be part of the solution toward liberation and be present and comfortable in discomfort. Hopefully today, our outcomes will be how and why a meeting must be affirmed, because that's something that you guys will be doing, when to work in the future, and the importance of your roster accuracy. So we have a couple of raised hands here. And why am I not seeing them? Redora, do you see the raised hands?
Not really, and I don't know how, unless they type things in maybe the chat, type their questions in the chat. And then I could see what their questions are.
Questions and answers, I think we have to use, right? That's unfortunate.
Oh, so chat is still disabled.
Yeah, chat's still disabled. Oh, this is bad. I wanted everybody to be able to participate and talk, and I don't see that raised hands here so that I can unmute you. Do you see that, Redora?
Yeah, I see the raised hands, but
Do you see any raised hands there?
I mean, I see like it's popping up that people are raising their hands.
Right, but I don't see who it is
Let me
to be
see.
able to unmute them. This is very frustrating.
Okay.
Can you paste the slide link into the questions and answers?
Yes, I can do that.
Hi there, this is Zareen again, just about the raised hands. So if you click on participants, there's a tab for attendees. You'll see the little raised yellow hand there. You can click on that And then clicking next to their name, you can click on allow to talk if you want to do that.
Let me see here. I'm not getting.
So participants down at the bottom.
Yeah, when I go to participants and
Says-
click on it, I don't get the.
Do you see panelists and attendees?
Yeah, let me move this over. This is. Allow to talk. There I go.
Yes, great.
Okay.
That's it.
But I don't know who they are. I'm not seeing who they are when I see the raised hands.
Yeah, you'll see their name right next to that in that same line. And so you'll see their name and you can allow them to talk if you want to.
Okay.
And then you can use the Q&A. The chat is disabled for this session because it was chosen to be a webinar. So thank you for your patience. It sounds like you didn't want that setting, but that's what was chosen when it was set up. We're still learning this. So thanks everyone for your patience.
Thank you. I appreciate your being here.
Someone said they can see the slide deck link in the chat.
Yes, so hosts can put things in the chat so you can share things with them that way. It's the participants that can't chat back, I believe.
So the link is on the chat though, right? So they can access it there.
Yes, why don't you put it in there one more time just to make sure everyone can see it?
Okay.
So please raise your hand so I can unmute you.
Hi, Brian. This is Iman.
Hi, Iman.
We had the same issue with the previous webinar, and they get to fix the chat for us. So just someone has to play a little bit on the settings, and we can see this the slide link. So if you can paste it to the Q&A space, it will be great. Thank you.
All right. I'll try to do that on the Q&A now. Thank you.
Okay. Brian,
Yes.
this is Linda Chandler.
Yes.
You mentioned signing in, and I don't know how to sign in. I clicked on where it said sign in thing and nothing happened.
To
Do I
this-
have to download this? Oh, in that. Okay, thank you.
In
Well,
this
nothing's
link.
happening when I go there.
Nothing's happening.
Nothing's happening.
Can you copy and paste it?
On my phone?
Oh, you're on your phone?
No, I'm on my computer, but I don't know how to copy and paste this.
You
So-
can just type it in.
I'm clicking on it and nothing's opening.
I just put that in the chat again. So if you want to click on the link there, see if that works.
Nope, not for me.
Oh, no.
Hmm.
Oh, wait, maybe I got it now. I don't know. No, it just comes back to the original. It should open another link.
Brian, this is David Greenlee. What I had to do in the other presentations is I had to cut paste that into my browser.
I know, but it won't even allow me to copy. I'm
Or it
like,
won't allow you, really?
yeah, I'm trying to scan across it to copy and nothing is.
I
it's
just, yeah, it
everything's
worked for
frozen.
me.
Yeah, it's just like everything is frozen on this screen. So just take my name down. I was there, Linda Chandler from Sheridan.
I see you here. I see your name. So I purposefully did this as a talking thing because I wanted you guys to be able to ask your questions and make your comments. So please, please, please feel free to talk. I really want it to be that way.
You probably already said this, but I just wanted to remind people that if they signed up once, that's enough. You just sign up once for the entire day.
Oh,
And then also I wondered if it would make sense to just start going ahead with the presentation and use Q&A until we
yeah,
can figure out the
that's
chat.
what I was just going to do.
Great, thanks.
So we were here to this sign in. The other thing on the agenda today is understanding the dashboard. So using your dashboard is going to be really helpful to you I think a lot of you may know that already. Some of you may not. It depends on whether or not you have, depends on whether or not you've been around for a while. If you have, you're probably going to have a better idea. If you've never used SACE and you're a brand new person coming in, you're going to need that training so that you can fully understand it. Future versus current IEP, that can be a little confusing sometimes to folks. Amendments and transactional reporting, progress notes and service tracker. The thorn in my side is service tracker. I have to tell you that. Training materials and resources, and the SACE help and the help desk. So there are some resources here at this link. Hopefully you can click on it and go to those resources and see what they are. But I think you all know this already, that login page when you go to SACE. If you're brand new to SACE and you don't have your SACE account yet, you may not have ever seen this page, but this is the login page. You would put your username and password and log in. If you don't have a username and password, then you need to let me know and let us know it's SACE help, and we will create that for you. We need to know the school that you're working at and your position to do that. And this is the dashboard, and this is the home page when you log in. You would see things that are a little bit different than that on yours as a provider, but you're going to see this follow-up. That's really a critical piece that you need to keep track of, because that tells you the unaffirmed IEPs on your caseload. This is all reflective of your caseload, and there will be numbers here. If you click on that dot and that number, it's going to tell you exactly whose IEPs have not been affirmed. The same with amendments, and the same with unsigned IEPs and unsigned amendments. So for signing of IEPs, after the IEP meeting has been held, it should be signed within it should be affirmed within 7 days. If the parent does not sign that IEP and that student has already been determined to be eligible for services, then go ahead and affirm that IEP. Don't wait for parent signature for students who are currently eligible. We can't implement those services without parent signature, but we do not need parent signature to affirm that IEP. Affirming the IEP is what marks it as done in CalPADS. And that's when those numbers will decrease on your caseload of overdue IEPs. It will not be listed as due until it's completed until it's affirmed. It will show as overdue up until the time it's affirmed. And I know that people used to always wait to affirm an IEP for parent signature. Don't do that. And I'll talk more about that when we get to the next a part down farther. The same with amendments. And with amendments, if you're creating an e-signature package, you actually have to affirm that IEP before you can create the e-signature package. For IEPs, you create the e-signature and you send it out, and it leads you through a process that includes affirming the IEP. But you trying to unmute folks here who are asking to be unmuted. And
Hi, Brian. We do have the chat working now too, so you're welcome to use that. Everyone can post in there.
oh, great. Thank you so much.
Okay, Brian,
Yes.
I tried to get on like last week onto my SACE, and I got on, but I could not open up or see any of the IEPs because immediately Adobe Acrobat Reader said I had to buy a new Adobe program to see, read, or do anything on SACE, up and including all the stuff the district is sending me on new students. I can't even open it because I don't have Adobe. Do I have to buy my own Adobe Acrobat Reader now?
I haven't heard anything about this. This is news to me. No, You should never have to buy anything. Let me write this down. I don't know who is
That was
telling me this.
Linda from Sheridan.
Linda Chandler.
Mhm.
Let me follow up on this, Linda, and I'll get back to you. That should not be an issue by
Okay,
any
thank you.
means. Is anyone else having that issue? Okay. Anyway, where was I? So affirming that IEP is what marks it as done in CalPADS at the state level so that you can get that off your overdue list. With IEPs, I was talking about e-signature packages, and with amendments, you have to affirm the IEP before it allows you to create the e-signature. I don't know why they did this backwards for amendments. For annuals, triennials, or initials, you have to, you can't create that. You don't affirm the IEP until after the e-signature package has been created and comes back either signed or not signed after the 7-day lock period. Also, with initial IEPs, that student needs to be listed as eligible for services before you even have the opportunity to create all of, to affirm an IEP. We can't make a student eligible. I want to be real clear on this. We can't make a student eligible for services and change them from pending to eligible until the parent signature or ed rights holder's signature is uploaded to SACE. And once it's uploaded to SACE with their agreement, even if they're agreeing with exceptions, that's fine. We can change their eligibility from pending to eligible, but we have to have that. And that's a requirement of the law. And I know it used to not always be that way. We've instituted that and been pretty firm about it over the last couple of years. But I just want to make clear that it's something that is absolutely required. We don't have a choice about that. The other reason now that it's really essential too is that you might have heard that the record keeping system is changed, and the only paper documents that you need to hold are things that are signed. We need signature pages and we need protocols that are held, but everything else needs to be uploaded to SACE if it's an attachment, and the SACE IEP record is the official record now. We are no longer going to keep all of those student records that are pages and pages and volumes and volumes. We no longer have to do that. All you keep is signature pages and the protocols, if it's a triennial or an initial IEP. Everything else is whatever is online. So that parent signature being online is essential too, because when we're going to send records, when there's a records request, it's going to be digital. And the records over the next coming years will be completely phased out as time goes on. And we will not have all of those records at the record room going forward. Any questions about that from anybody?
So Brian, several have questions about the signature.
Mhm.
A minute. Clarify what counts as a signature.
So yeah, I can clarify that really quickly. It's either an e-signature counts, and that can be not just a SACE e-signature, but one of those DocuSigns or whatever, but it has to be a signature, or that wet signature of a parent at an IEP meeting who signs there, or sending it home and they send it back and you get that wet signature and you upload it to SACE and you hold on to that wet signature. And that's what you put in the student's record. So it has to be a signature of some kind, either an e-signature, an electronic signature, or a wet signature. Either one is acceptable.
So
I heard a
if we
question.
have- If we have an electronic signature, it's already uploaded, or if we have DocuSign or something like that, and it's uploaded, do we not need to print out a copy to put in the brown folder?
You should print out a copy to put in the, I'll call it a brown. We're trying to get away from calling it a brown
Okay.
folder and calling it the student special ed record. But yes, you should print that out and put it in that folder, even if it's an electronic signature. Definitely if it's a wet signature, but the electronic one as well.
Hi, Brian. It's Francine.
Yes.
I know last year there was kind of a discussion, and I'm not sure that really any resolutions came about gathering attendance signatures on virtual IEPs. Especially because I know many people have found that the SACE electronic signature is not very accessible for certain populations in the district. And so when we are holding a meeting, do we have alternate legally defensible ways of proving that people were at a meeting?
We do not. If we don't have signatures on that IEP, we do not have legally defensible, a legally defensible way. We might have, you know, the state of California might be a little more lenient than a lawyer and a legal process. And those are two different things, actually. The state of California might look at that and say, okay, there's reference in the notes to this person. There's this person made comments in the notes, so clearly they were there. Legally, that's not going to stand, though. But for the purpose of the state accepting it as the LEA rep being there, or some other essential team member being there, required team member, the state of California in a records review probably would accept that. They have in the past. But legally, if it went to a court situation, it's not going to hold. Any other questions about signatures?
Yes, Brian, can you tell the difference between the amendment signature and the IP signature? Because sometimes not the whole team has to be there, or the whole team has to sign.
So in an amendment, the people who are relevant to that amendment need to be there. But we always need the person with ed rights. We always need, I'm hearing myself. We always need to have the LEA rep. So some administrator from the school is always going to need to be present as well. And then whoever else is relevant to that, what's being changed in that amendment. If for example, you have a related service provider and their services are not changing, then they don't need to participate in that unless their services are being discussed or changed in some way.
Thank you. It's what I had. Just want to make sure.
Yes. Any other
Brian?
questions?
Yes.
Brian,
Go ahead.
and I was going to say, I have trouble with the translators getting their signatures if it's virtual.
Yeah, that's a, you know, I hadn't heard that, but that's, wow. Because you can't, can you not include them, or?
Obviously, I include them on the e-signature. You have to put everybody's email out on the e-signature thing on SACE.
Right.
They just don't come back. I don't know if they're not being able to access it or what.
Okay. Let me put that down too. Interpreter signature. Okay, I'll
Brian?
have to get back to you on that, okay? Yes, someone else was going to.
Yeah, Brian, I had a question, real quick question. One of our teachers was taking a picture of the people listed on the attendance for IEP and Zoom. Taking a picture of the faces with that listing with their permission. Would that count as verification that they were in attendance?
Yeah, we really should never have pictures. That crosses a line. that we-
Yeah, how do we verify then?
Yeah, we just should not do that. We really need signatures. So
Okay.
I would never recommend the pictures.
And
Can you?
partly it's just a little bit off the side. When do we, or by whom do we get the forms, the SACE caseload updated? I've been given 3 different answers today. One was content specialist, one was maybe the supervisors, and one was you.
Yeah. It always comes to me in the end somehow. It really should be your content specialists and your supervisors that are updating your caseloads. And content specialists are not back until tomorrow. So I know some of them have probably been working now, but it really should be your content specialist and or your cohort supervisor. Those are the first people. It's always a struggle at the beginning of the year because it's really cumbersome. There are so many. Also know that at the high school level, the department chairs also can assign caseloads. So that's something that can be done at the high school level, but not at the middle or.
And if one of our transitioning 5th graders has not been assigned to a school, we go to our content specialist.
Oh, I would go to my principal. If you have a 5th grader who has not been assigned to a middle school,
Correct. 2 of
are
them.
they listed as a 6th grader on your?
Nope.
They're listed still as a 5th grader?
All of my 5th graders are still listed as 5th graders.
Can you email me that?
Sure.
This is one where I need to see it to really know. It should automatically say, and Synergy, as long as these kids are upgraded in their grades are corrected in Synergy, which they should be, Synergy and SACE should have already updated that information and they should
I
be.
will send you the names.
Okay, do that and I'll take a look and get back to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Any other questions, Rodora, that I'm missing?
Brian,
I asked a couple.
my question is, and I might have missed this because I was having some audio problems. If we're not allowed, if like just noting in the notes who attended, if we're holding a virtual meeting and we like can't physically get a piece of paper to someone and the e-signature doesn't work for the parent, how do we officially then record that someone was at the meeting? What I've been doing
you definitely
on the sign in.
You definitely should in the notes always record who's there.
I always do, but I know that we're supposed to have people sign in on the consent form as well above the consent portion of the form.
That's right. That's exactly
So
right.
if we can't do that, what do we do?
So you need to, if you have a meeting that's virtual, you should be able to get the staff who attended to sign that for sure. If the parent can't sign it, then they need to come, if they can't do it electronically, they're going to need to either come in and sign or it needs to be sent home and returned with their signature. There's no way around that.
And then so what about for an interpreter? Because if the interpreter is attending a meeting virtually, I have no way of getting the form to them.
Yeah, I have that written down. That's a more complicated one, I'm sure. So I need to talk to the folks at interpretation and see what we can do about that so that we can get that straightened out. We can make sure we can get those signatures when it's a virtual meeting, because that is pretty important. I was not aware of that. Anything else?
Hey, Brian.
Yes.
This is Catherine from Monroe. I hope you had a good summer. I was wondering if you know the guidance around having, or if it's the parent's decision now.
Say that again. You were gone for a second.
Oh, sorry. I was just wondering, are we having IEPs in person or virtual, or is it the parent's decision now going forward?
Well, that's a great question, because I think that as much in person as possible is what we should be doing. But if there's no way for a parent to attend in person, then I think virtual is still an option that we need to be using, since we have that option. But ideally, they would be in person. We're all supposed to be in person now, right? So I think that in person is the preference. If a parent just absolutely can't do in person, then a virtual meeting would need to be done to accommodate them.
I have a with that then. Well, I basically always need interpretation at my school. Are the interpreters going to be in person as well now, or will they only be virtual still?
I need to talk to them, because they should be in person. If it's an in-person meeting, for sure they should be in person.
Okay, thank you so much.
I don't.
Anyone else while we're still taking questions?
Yeah, do you see, I put some in Q&A. It's Lisa from Wallenberg. Hey there.
Hi.
Hi, so I have had a lot of parents who just want to be on Zoom because it's so much easier for them to come all the way to school, because they only get so much time to leave their jobs usually.
Right.
If they type, first question is, if they type in the chat that they give consent, can we use that?
No, we can't, unfortunately.
Okay. Second of all, if I have a parent who tries multiple times to do the e-signature but cannot get it to work, and I'm unable to get the paper home to them, do I just affirm it and say I have no signature and make a note that they gave verbal consent in the meeting if they did?
You can do that, yes. It's
okay.
We're still going to have to try to get that signature, Lisa, but doing it the way you're saying, yes, go ahead and do it that way.
Okay. Yeah, there's a few that have been challenging.
Yeah.
And then, they just can't find the submit button. It doesn't matter what you do. And then, do we know who the content specialist for each school is right now, and who's the head for high school this year?
The head for high schools is still Matt Lavoie.
Okay, good. And then who's our content specialist for each school?
I don't know. I have not.
We don't know that yet.
Okay. I haven't heard that information yet.
I heard we got one partway through the last year, but no one ever told me who they were.
Oh, okay. I can tell you it's not, it was Caitlin, and I can tell you it's not Caitlin because she left the district. So it's not her. Okay. I don't know who it is, but there should be one.
So, and will everyone be notified, or just the department head?
I have no idea. I can let Matt know that he should notify everyone.
Yeah, like everyone should know who, like not just the department, because sometimes things don't trickle down, not out of it, just because there's just so much coming at us. Right. If we hear important things directly without having to go through another person, it's great.
Yeah, I can recommend that to Matt.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Brian?
Yes.
Christine. How are you going to let us know about the whole signature thing from translators? I know the district is very short with them, our interpreters. I had one from New York. I had one from Berkeley. They've been from all over the country, and not very good, mind you. But so I don't know. I've been having everyone sign into the chat with their name and their title, and then I take a picture just of the chat for my attendance. Does that work?
I think that's a great idea, actually. I hadn't heard that before, but I think that's a great idea. I would recommend you doing that. Okay. I'm not sure about that working in the long run, but it might actually, given the virtual nature of that. I don't know. I'll find out about that.
Okay.
In terms of getting that information. I will send out a blast to everyone. I am planning on doing my tip of the week thing again this year. Last year got a little crazy, but I am hopefully going to do it. It may not be every week, but it would be at least every couple of weeks. But I will do that, and I'll send out that information to everyone.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No? Okay. Then I'll keep going here.
Brian?
Yes.
This is Iman from MLK.
Uh-huh.
I have a question not about what you just mentioned, just a question that later, if you have time, so you can answer it. If you can please tell me the steps, how to document a health plan for a student.
So a health plan for a student, the nurse, the school nurse, that's something that, you know, everybody should be working with their school nurses. And for health plans, that's something that the school nurse would be involved in and would be doing the health plan. That should be uploaded on from the notes and attachments page on SACE. That is not in the body of the IEP, and it gets attached in the notes and attachments section, and the nurse usually always does that. Uploads the health plan.
Actually, it was sent to me before the school closed by the nurse to document it on SACE.
So I can walk you through how to upload that for her, but typically the nurse is going to do that because that's a health plan that they're writing and they're providing, and they're implementing probably parts of that health plan themselves. So it's important to work with your nurses on those things, but I can walk you through that later, Iman.
Sure, thank you.
Yes. Okay. Am I still presenting? Yes. I think you probably know about the local news. That's the stuff that we post. We need to really clean that up for this year. We haven't done that yet, but that would be the local news. SACE News is the stuff from San Joaquin, the folks who own SACE that we pay our exorbitant fee every year for to use SACE. The meeting alerts, meeting alerts are those next meetings. So all of the students on your caseload, you get a 30-day notice. If you click on here for their IEPs being due, their annuals. If there are past dues, you just click on here. Actually, if you click on here, you'll get past dues and the ones in the next 30 days on your caseload. Next eligibility review are those triennials. I hate when they change terminology on us. Annuals are annual plan reviews. Now they're plan review according to CalPEDS. And eligibility reviews are the triennials. You get 90 days for that because of the need for reassessment. And the initial evaluations are a 60-day window. And I think probably everyone knows that. From the time that the assessment plan is sent out, assessment plan should always be completed and sent out either by the school psychologist or by the speech pathologist. Those are the folks who initiate that. They come back to them, and when they come back to them, they record the date that they receive it, and that 60-day window for initials begins at that time. Same for triennials. That window of time to get that completed begins at that time where we receive consent. So with initials, it's that 60 days, calendar days, not work days. For triennials, it's a little touchier because there's an established triennial date. So our window could be much smaller depending on when that comes back signed. And we can't begin our assessments until we have the assessment plan signed by the parent. Any questions there? Okay, if you get CalPADS alerts, you should be being automatically directed to submit a change request in SACE, and it will direct you to that automatically. Just fill it, just submit that request and I'll figure out what it is. That's going to show up here. And that's for me and Rodora to correct. You don't need to worry about that. The other thing that I wanted to tell you is the calendar. There have been, I don't know if you're aware of this, but this calendar now can be shared with other team members. So you can actually put a meeting on here and you can share that with other members of the students. That's something that I don't think you could do last year. You know this already, I'm sure, that students who are currently eligible have a blue dot. Students that are pending have a green dot, and they would be pending if they are in that assessment process. Sometimes a kid who is actually eligible reverts back to pending for some reason. Sometimes there's a reason for that. Sometimes the system gets a little janky and makes some changes. We've all had that experience. If that happens, let us know, and we can change them back to eligible for you. The pending students should have an initial eval date and plan type, and that's going to be on that needs to be selected on the SACE CalPADS page, the student CalPADS page in SACE. And the plan type for any of the students at the schools that you're working at, unless you're pre-K, should always be IEP. Always. Should never be something other than that. Also, all of the students at schools that are district schools, which are all of our comprehensive high schools and all of our middle schools and all of our elementary schools, should always be under the SFUSD, San Francisco Unified School District. If a student is at Civic Center, either the high school or the middle school, if they're in some of those programs that are run by the County Office of Ed, they should be under the County Office of Ed, SFCOE. And that's an important distinction, because if that's not correct in SACE, we need to correct that, Rodora and I. But it impacts your ability to schedule that student or have them listed at your school site as a student who does have an IEP. And that does happen sometimes. We are a single district SELPA, meaning that our district and county and our charter schools make up our SELPA. In other SELPAs, they have many districts. So people work specifically either for a specific district within that SELPA, or they work for the county programs, or they work for the charter school. In San Francisco, we have that all commingled. And we since we're a single district SELPA, everybody is in one bucket. And our programs we look at through this lens of one bucket. Before, for reporting purposes, it doesn't work that way. So we need to be very conscious of that. So if you have any students on your list, when you look at your list, your caseload list, you will see that one of them says LEA, and everything should always say San Francisco Unified. If it doesn't, please let us know so that we can fix that. It will make things much easier for everyone. So unaffirmed IEPs are considered not done. You might have held that meeting, and it might have been a great meeting, might have been a terrible meeting, but it might have been a great meeting, but it's unaffirmed. And then you're getting this overdue notice or this kid is on the overdue list, it's because it's not affirmed. Only those affirmed IEPs are considered completed by the state. And that's why they continue to show up as not done. It's just a matter of affirming in some cases. And again, I will tell you, for students who are currently eligible, you can affirm without parent signature. For students who have initial IEPs and are pending, you're not going to get that affirm button until that first IEP has been held and you have uploaded that signature page, and we can change that student from pending to eligible. And then you'll see that lock so that you'll be able to affirm that IEP, but you don't get that icon on SACE for pending students. Just know that. So anytime you have an IEP for a student who is currently pending, you hold the IEP, you get that parent signature, you upload it to SACE, definitely let us know so that we can change that student's eligibility. Submit that request form, and we will be able to change that student. So unaffirmed amendments, it's the same thing. If the amendment was held, but it wasn't affirmed, those services, if you have service changes or goal changes or anything like that that you're making in that body of that amendment, it's not going to show up as being done until it's affirmed. It's also not going to let you create another amendment in SACE until that amendment is affirmed. Okay. So unsigned IEPs, when you're affirming an IEP, one of the first questions in that, I guess it's more in the middle now. It used to be the first question, but the question is this IEP signed, right? Is it signed or not signed? If it's not signed, you just click yes, and no, and you go on, and you note that it's not signed, right? But if they sign it, if the parent signs it later, you just go back into the current IEP and you can mark it as signed. It's a very easy step to do. And then it will fall off of that unsigned list. Your content specialist or supervisor should be able to help you with that. The meeting alerts, I wanted to talk a little bit about the meeting alerts because they're great on here. And you've probably heard me say this before, but don't depend on them to schedule your IEPs, because you need to be able to contact all those service providers for that student. You need to be able to have an administrator from your school site there to attend that IEP. And if you depend on the meeting alerts to alert you to those 30 days or 90 days, you're probably not going to get it, because related services providers have huge caseloads and their schedule fills up really quickly. So it's the case also with the administrators at your school site. Their schedules are pretty full. They have all these other things. They're not going to be there. I really recommend for all annual IEPs and triennials that when you get your caseloads, one of the first things you do is chart out the IEPs roughly, at least. They don't even have to be a definitive thing, but a rough date for the entire year. If you chart that out and do that and give that to all the related service providers and your school site administrators, it's going to make life easier so they can put it in your calendar. And then as you get closer to that date, notify the parents. You might need to change some of those, but the chances of you having everybody pulled together at the time that those meetings are due will be far greater, because it can be really hard to pull together the IEP team. I know from my own experience over multiple years of teaching that that's a challenge. It's a challenge to make sure that you got all the required team members there. So that really makes it easier. Use those meeting alerts only as an alert. remind you. Don't depend on it. Please don't depend on it. There are different rules for students who are pre-K kids. So it's important for those folks who work with the pre-K kids to know some of these things that are down here. And your plan type is going to be an IFSP, but that's for pre-K. And I always let the pre-K admin dictate all of that. I don't even try to get into it because it's a totally different world in pre-K. So you know how to access your students. I'm assuming that you know that you can either go to students on the black toolbar at the top of your dashboard, your SACE dashboard. You can either choose student IEPs or caseload or however you like to look them up. I always prefer the student IEPs just because it's more linear. I'm a more linear thinker. Caseload is a little more jumbled for me, although different people have different preferences. You will have what is now called a provider level account. And we used to have provider accounts and teacher accounts. The differentiation of that changed last year, and it's a provider level account now, but it's the same thing as it always was. If you're a provider for a student, you may or may not be, if you're going to be the case manager, you're going to be the case manager, but it's still from that provider level account. If you're a provider for a student, but not the case manager, then you can be a provider, but you won't be able to affirm that IEP. The only person that can affirm an IEP is the case manager. So you would work as a provider for that student, just like everyone else that are providers, and give input where you need to. But as a case manager, you're going to be the person that's going to communicate with the IEP team and with those timelines and response. You're going to be responsible for affirming those IEPs, amendments, and your progress reports. You also are going to be that person as a case manager who schedules the IEP meeting and gets it all together. And it's work. It's a task because you're the facilitator. I want to talk about this just for 1 minute too. As a case manager, you're facilitating that IEP. You can't take notes in an IEP that you facilitate. It's just not physically possible to do that. So I always recommend that people create a Google Doc and give all of the staff people who are providers, including the administrator at the school site, access to that Google Doc. So the notes can be taken on that Google Doc and people can share that responsibility during the meeting. And then you can just cut and paste that into the notes page of SACE, because only one person can be in the notes page of SACE at a time, which you all know, I'm sure. So that's very limiting. I always recommend doing it that way so that it can be done by a shared team of people. Any questions? Okay.
Brian, can I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
It's David Benson, John O'Connell. Is it legal to get an excusal for an administrator? We found ourselves in that situation a few times last year.
Yeah, it is not. An administrator cannot be excused, and an administrator can appoint a representative to represent them, to be a designee for them. So, but you need somebody, either the administrator there, or you need an administrative designee. But they can't be completely excused from an IEP. So the reason that is because the administrator is signing that IEP that actually confirms that the services that are being provided to this student that the school district is prepared to fund those services and guaranteeing that they will be provided. That's what their signature does. And that's what binds it when the parent signs as a contract in a legal document. So they either have to be there themselves or assign a designee to be there, but there can't be an excusal form for them.
And can we educate them on whom they can assign as a designee? Is there some, can they assign whoever they want, or?
Technically they can. They actually can assign about anybody that they choose to assign.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions around any of that?
Brian,
Yes.
does the admin designee need to hold an admin credential?
They should hopefully hold an admin credential. That should be who it is, another administrator of some kind, or someone who holds that credential and works within their school site. Also, if they just can't be there, they really should be communicating then with the content specialist. I would let the content specialist know that. I would let the cohort supervisor know that, because maybe the supervisor could step in, or somebody else could step in to assist with that. But it should be someone who has a credential, the admin credential, yes. But that's a should be. I know change forms have been slow sometimes at being completed, and I apologize for that, but it's been a rough year last year at central office with a minimal staff. It's been tough, so bear with us. I've always told folks, and I will continue to tell you, and I'll probably regret saying this after today, but if you really have a critical need and you can't get something done, then email me directly. But please also email your content specialist, email your cohort supervisor. We need to spread this out so that things can get done. Content specialists can assign caseloads. They can assign students to your caseload. They can make people case managers. So can the supervisors. So it's not limited just to content specialists or to Redora or I. It's actually anybody at central office can do that. And just know that, please. So if you need it quickly, you may not be able to get it from me. Definitely let other people know so that somebody is going to be able to help you with that. Because access to the students that you need access to is a real priority. You can't do anything unless you have access to that student. So when you submit an ad form or student change form for the following, to have a student added or removed to your caseload, from your caseload, or to your caseload, added, change the student's eligibility status. So if you're changing from pending to eligible, make sure that parent's signature is already uploaded before you submit that change form. To have a student exited. So students could exit for a couple of reasons. Well, a number of reasons really, but one is that they might have been reassessed and no longer qualify for services, then they need to be exited. One would be that the student has left the district, and as weird as that sounds, they would be exited from us. And that's not exiting them from SPED, that's just exiting them from San Francisco. Another reason would be that the parent revoked consent. And parents, if a parent says they no longer want their student to be in special ed, that needs to be written, and it can just say, it can be just a sentence that said, I no longer want my student to receive special ed services, and it needs to be signed. You upload that, you submit the request, and we are required to exit that student. If you exit a student because of parent revocation, if they revoke services for their student, that student becomes a gen ed student and cannot have any special ed services at all. Another exit is when a student graduates. And let me be clear on the graduation thing, because it's a little weird. And I know that those folks who have seniors continue to see them on their caseloads, and some I know are still seeing them and shouldn't be anymore. We are not allowed to remove those students until June 30th. So they will remain on your caseload even though they've graduated until June 30th, and then we can remove them. And I know we're still in the process of removing some of them. If you have them, let me know, and we can try to get them off your caseload as soon as possible. But we're required to leave them on for CalPERS reporting purposes, because if we exit them, then they show as exited, and we don't get the last part of that reimbursement for the students. So the eligible request needs to be submitted after the initial IEP has been held and that parent consent is uploaded. But it's important to do that as quickly as possible, because until we list them, we need to list them so that the services can officially be initiated in SACE and reported to the state. That's important. The minute you get the signature at the school site, you can initiate the services, but we need to make sure that it gets initiated through that transaction when you affirm it to the state, because they need to know that too, and that impacts the timelines. Definitely compare your Synergy roster to your SACE roster. It really needs to match. Sometimes they're not coinciding, and you have a kid, and this happens at all levels, but it's especially important at the high school level. If a student there's something wrong and Synergy and SACE are not matching with the information that they have, you may not be able to schedule that student for the classes that they need, especially at the high school level. And that's pretty critical, especially there where they're earning credits toward graduation. Any questions?
Is there anything you need to check on the IEP if a parent has asked you to revoke services?
So if a parent revokes services, I really only need, it depends on when it's done.
Today.
If it's during the year and all of a sudden the parent says, I don't want services for my student anymore, then just that revocation is fine. Send that to me. The supervisor should be doing a revocation form in SACE in the future. And that's because they need to contact the parent and offer to meet with them to ensure that the parent understands that by revoking services, their student will no longer have the protections of special ed, and they will not be able to receive any special ed services. The caveat here is that if a parent revokes services and then changes their mind within a 1-year period, they can be reinstated for special ed services without further assessment. If it's longer than 1 year, then the student would need to be reassessed and redetermined for eligibility.
I believe they're leaving the district, but she's also requested, and I said, I had said that we should because she never signed the IEP, and then I said we need to finalize it so that if he does come back, that he has a valid IEP. And then she said, I'd rather he not have one because it interferes with other things that he can do or something.
Okay, so in a case like that, this is actually a great example. In a case like that, she can sign the IEP, and there's one of the check boxes says that you're not accepting the IEP.
Oh, that's right. Ah, perfect. Okay.
If she
good.
just checks that and signs that, then we would do the same thing and exit him. But that would verify that. See, the difference is this. We want to always verify when a parent revokes services that we don't agree with that. We are not recommending that. We're recommending that the student continue to have services, and these are the services we're offering. They're the ones that are choosing not to take them. And that's important because if there was something legal that came up, we need to have that documentation clear for the courts so that we can verify that we offered and we believe that they should have the services, but the parent is choosing not to. So that's important for that reason.
Perfect. Yeah. No, it was complicated because he's kind of at grade level, but he has lots of behavior problems, but he's been doing the online learning program. So we don't know what he'd be like when he got back, and it's not as
Right.
trying.
I think that's been a complication through this whole pandemic, that there are so many ifs there, right?
Right.
We don't know what would happen if he came back. So he's doing great online. But yeah, if he's back in person, what does that mean?
Yeah.
It's hard to know. Okay, so moving on here, the once a year IEP. So an annual IEP can only be held once a year. It's required by law that we have one annually. An initial IEP can only be once. Student has one initial IEP. If they have an initial IEP, let me go this far, and they let's say they have an IEP for like a 3, 4, 5 year period, and then they no longer qualify for services and they're exited from special ed, and then at some point in the future it's determined, a year or two pass, and they decide that, well, maybe this kid does need some kind of services. That would be a time where a student would have a second initial IEP, but there would have to be an exit that was based on assessment saying that they no longer qualify in the middle of that. Okay, so typically it's only one initial IEP and the student is eligible for the rest of their days. But if there is a time when they no longer qualify through assessment, then, and they're exited, if they're reinstated in more than a year, then it would be another initial IEP, but only in that case where they had been exited. Never if they have not been exited. It would only be one. If a student is eligible for speech only, and SLD, specific learning disability, is assessed and determined to that they're eligible under that. And even if that becomes the primary, it's not an initial. It's not another initial for that student. It's just the adding of that eligibility. So it would still be an annual or triennial, whichever it is. And it would be noted that this is an additional eligibility for this student, but it's not an initial. And I think that gets confusing to folks sometimes because it is an initial for that eligibility, but the student is already eligible and had their initial, so none of that changes. Any questions there? Okay, for meeting type, if you're working in the future IEP, the only things that you check, you would have to check one of these at the top. It's either an initial, an annual, or a triennial and an annual. You can check both of those. If it's an initial, then it's only an initial. It can't be a tri or an annual as well. Also, when you're checking one of those boxes, this is working in the future, you can have an additional purpose for that meeting. So you would just check that transition, pre-expulsion, interim, or other if needed. But if your whole purpose of a meeting is one of those additional purposes of meeting, transition, pre-expulsion, interim, or other, that's always done as an amendment to the current IEP. It should never be done in the future. And you would access the forms that you need through that amendment, not through the future IEP. Are there questions about that? Okay. Let's see here.
Hi, this is Sarah from Marina, and I do have a question about that.
Okay.
If you are holding an annual or I know this isn't preferred, but you can't hold the triennial in time or the annual or whatever. I don't know. They're due for an annual and the triennial doesn't quite meet up, or you don't have the signature for the reevaluation.
Right.
What should you do then? Do you do sort of triennial part 1 and then do a part 2, or can you do an annual and then come back and do a triennial? Because I know it said on there you shouldn't do more than 1 per year.
Yeah, you're not going to be, if you do the annual, then when the triennial time comes, and this is a little weird, but when the triennial time comes, you're going to have to hold a triennial, unfortunately, when you can get it done. And you're going to have those 2 meetings from then. You're going to have to try to then the next triennial, they can either shorten that triennial time frame, and I would recommend that. Trying to keep those meetings aligned, the triennial and annual, is really the best practice. It is for a couple of reasons. One, obviously, is that you only have 1 meeting a year instead of 2, right? 1 meeting every 3 years instead of 2, because every 3rd year you'd need that second meeting. But more than that is the fact that you always want your annual IEP to be based on the most current assessment data as possible. So when you have it out of sync and you have a triennial a little bit after an IEP, you're having an annual IEP and then you're getting current information. And annuals by law are supposed to be written for a 1-year period with goals and services reasonably calibrated for a 1-year period. And you're basing it on old info. So you always want to have it on the newest info. If you have a triennial that's coming up and it's, in a month or 2, you're supposed to have an annual, I would talk to that parent and see, can we shorten this annual year? Can we shorten it so that we can align this information with the triennial and have that more current assessment data so that everything makes better sense for that student? So there are ways that you can shorten either the triennial year if it's close, or you can shorten the annual year if it's close. But sometimes it's right in the middle, and it'll take a number of years to get it in sync, but you want it to be as clear as possible. So you would do that triennial as a triennial.
So Brian,
that's
reporting, it's very strange now.
So kind of on that, for our pre-K students who are transitioning to kindergarten, so we have to have an early triennial for them.
Right.
Are you saying that when we have that early triennial, it is another triennial meeting and that their annual date now gets changed?
It can. It doesn't have to, but it can. If it's close.
Okay.
But yeah, I wouldn't, if it's not close, I wouldn't even do that.
Good, because otherwise I fear that all kids are going to have their IEPs, if they're coming from pre-K, all due at the same time, and that would
you don't have to do that. It's just an option that you have. In that case especially, I don't think I'd do it, because that's that whole other world, like I was saying. Do it the way you're doing it with pre-K. Any other questions around that?
Brian, we
Yes.
often get the parents waiving the triennial in pre-K because they will only have been with us for 1 year or just at 2. And they have agreed to waive the triennial until the next year when they're in K.
Mhm. I think that, I think that that's fine. I think that as
Okay.
long as your pre-K folks are good with that, I'm good with that. I really go by what they tell me. And I can understand why that would be fine, because you have this kid whose development is really happening quickly, and they're going to be in a totally different environment when they get to K and pre-K and all. So I think that that totally makes sense to me. So I would go with that in that situation. Totally understandable. So sometimes you have an annual IEP and it takes more than one meeting. You should always list that first meeting as your IEP date, hold to that date, close it out, affirm, and have an amendment for the second meeting. But the annual IEP date will be that meeting of that first meeting date will be the annual IEP date. And that continuation in the form of an amendment may finish that IEP for you, or maybe it's the third or fourth meeting that does. But those are all amendments to that annual IEP date. And you're doing that just to finish that meeting. For clerical errors, you don't have to hold a meeting. So if you have clerical errors in the IEP, you would fix those through an amendment and call it a clerical error, correction IEP, and just say that there were clerical errors and point out what they were and fix them. You still got to get signatures on that, but a meeting is not necessary. So when you hold a transition meeting, and that's a transition going from those 5th to 6th and 8th to 9th, that's an amendment. A transition meeting at the high school level, your annual IEP and or annual triennial should always include transition at the high school level, because there are those 2 pages that are transition meetings that need to be included in that IEP. So for high school students, always you're checking annual and triennial and transition. The purpose of that meeting will always be that. If you're exiting a student from special ed, you would go through the current IEP and hold that meeting as an exit from special ed. And again, that's exiting them through assessment. You would not exit them another way through that. Update IEP forms with language translation. So you may want to do that too. Obviously, your IEP amendment will give you the choices of purpose of meeting. If it doesn't really fall into correction or continuation or amendment, it could be a pre-expulsion, it could be parent request or whatever, just choose other and say what it is for that 30-day placement. If you're confused about what to put, just always check other and put something in there that explains it from your point of view. In terms of cleaning out past history, know that anything that's in a current IEP, anything that's in those historical IEPs are archived. They are there. They're not going to go away no matter what we do. So always, when you're having an annual IEP, take out all of the old information. Don't be afraid to delete that. Especially your present levels page. It should only be current present levels for that student. So delete all the previous years. They're there. Delete all of the notes from previous years. Delete all of the notices of meetings from previous years. They are archived. They are there in the any affirmed IEPs that have been done. Get rid of them. If you keep those, if you don't delete those at that time before you affirm, then you're reaffirming those previous years, and that's why IEPs can get to be 100 pages. Okay, that avoids confusion over the offer of FAPE. All of those old services, we used to have to keep services until a certain date. But with CalPADS, we don't have to do that because of transactional reporting. So every year when you're redoing the services in SACE, get rid of the previous services. Any irrelevant pages, get rid of them. Focus on now, don't focus on the past. And like I said, the affirmed IEP, all of that documentation from the past is saved there. It's not going away anywhere. So before affirming an IEP, what time is it? I have 2 minutes. I was going to do this a different way, but I'm just going to do it this way. SACE has these check boxes now that you have to check. Verify that meeting date. Make sure that the meeting date that's in SACE on that info and eligibility page is the correct meeting date, the correct meeting type, whether it's an annual, an initial, a triennial, and any of those others if it's one of those. The plan type should always be IEP for anybody that's 3 or older. The signature page, is it signed? It's going to ask that signature. If it is, yes. If it's not, no. Projected next annual date, it's going to be, if we have an IEP today, August 10th, 2022, the next annual date should be August 9th, 2023, a day before. The last triennial date, so whatever that last triennial date was, and then the projected triennial date should be 3 years in the future. If this meeting is a triennial, if it's an annual and triennial, then last triennial date needs to be today's date. It needs to be the date of this IEP if it's a triennial, if it's an annual and triennial. So then the projected triennial date would be August 9th, 2025. And that can be confusing to folks too. So when you're doing a triennial, that last triennial date becomes this current meeting date. Any questions about that? Make sure that your present levels and your goals and your services align, and any amendments are reportable. Transactional reporting simply means that when you create that transaction in SACE, when you affirm an IEP, you create a transaction in SACE, that transaction is immediately reported to CalPADS, and that's what notes that the IEP has been done. If you don't affirm an IEP, it doesn't get listed as completed. Progress reports, remember to do your progress reports. Please, I won't go into all of that. And Service Tracker is my nightmare. There is guidance in SACE about Service Tracker. If you need that, let me know and we can talk about it. It's my least favorite part of SACE. Contact your content specialist. We need to make sure that people know who their content specialist is, their cohort supervisor. Contact us at SACEhelp, sfusd.edu. And you can contact the folks at San Joaquin if it's a systems problem. But if it's specific information about students, they're not going to be able to help you. You got to contact us for that. If you contacted all these things and you're not getting anywhere, I'll say this time, contact me. And hopefully I won't regret this. Thank you for being here. Here is my contact. Redora Lawrence is our administrative analyst. Julia Martin is our OMSBUTS person. She helps us out too. You can contact any of us. There is a bit.ly feedback form. If you could give feedback, that would be very helpful so that going forward, we would know if this format works or if this has been helpful or not, and make the changes needed going forward. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate your work tremendously, and I really try to be here to help you, and I do want to help you in the things going forward. I hope you have a great year. Definitely let us know when you need things. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Brian.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Rodora.
Brian, hi, Miss Abram.
Hey, Brian.
Thank
One-
you very much, Mr. Brian. Have a
Thanks.
great day and take care.
You too.
Brian, are you planning to host Thursday training like last year?
Yes, I'm going to be training more. Yes.
On the feedback form, is the session called supporting, no, wait, what's it called?
It's called something weird. It's
I see using SACE for data analysis, but that's not it. That was
that's
something
not
else.
it. It's another one, but it's not this title at all.
Is it special education teachers and related service providers?
I think it is. That sounds
Okay,
right.
I'm gonna go with that. I'm going with that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right then.
Any other questions?
I heard you were going to be superintendent next year. That's
that will never be.
Hey, no, man, I miss you. I miss poor souls. All right, I hope everything is good.
Thank you. I hope you have a good year.
Yeah, man, trying. Oh, hey, one thing. Are they ever gonna do like the all-sped PD like at the beginning of the year? Like
We're supposed to be doing something. Yes, I think that there is something on your day to start with the students is the 17th, right? I think there's something on the 16th is this.
16.
Yeah.
Okay. Because
Is
they're
what's-
having all the subject ones are on Monday.
Is it the 15th? It's either the 15th or 16th.
Yeah, but you guys, there's a Google Doc with all the PD stuff, like the district PD, that's that Monday. And there's nothing for SPED on it. It's just like the different grade levels and all the different subject areas.
I think it's the 16th for some reason. That's what
Oh,
I
geez.
Thought they was
That's
like
our,
never
that's
again
our
after
work
Blanco.
day.
I know.
Why
I was
can't it
just
be
thinking that as I was saying it, but
That's like our work day in our classroom.
yeah.
Ooh, all right, see y'all later.
All right, well, we'll keep an eye on the email for that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Brian, this is
Yeah.
Iman from MLK. So do you want me to email you to see when you are available to walk me through to
Yes,
document the
yes,
health
do that,
plan?
Iman, and we can schedule a time that we can meet.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you for your time.
All right, I'm going to sign off here. And then for all, thank you for being here.